Hello everyone, and welcome to Whitetail Driven Solutions YouTube channel. We are bringing you tips, strategies, and tactics to help you and your property be more successful. We not only invite you to subscribe to our channel, but also hit the notification button to be notified when we release new videos. Hey guys, hanging out in front of the fire tonight. The topic is what I feel is the #1 way to destroy a small parcel. Now when I say destroy a small parcel, I mean destroy the huntability of a small parcel as far as being able to make that property perform to the highest of its ability. Now that is, each small parcel is different in its own way, but the quickest way I feel to destroy most small parcels is the unstrategic placement of a food plot. Now that's gonna kind of ruffle some feathers, I know, but I feel that the #1 way to do that is to destroy that most small parcels, is to overlook the placement of that food plot, or just plant it. As we always say, it's an opening in the woods. God made an opening there, let's just plant it. Or it's an area where this area has been used as a bait station. It's an opening in the woods. It might be an area that you can reach out with a rifle and touch something a little further. It's just it's an easy way to be able to use that area. It's going to be easy to till. It's easy to get the tractor in and out of, and you don't feel maybe that's an area where the ground is a little better there because it's got some briars or whatever the case is, and the topsoil is a little bit better, and all your focus turns to the ease of that food plot instead of the smarts of the design and the smarts of that food plot being in the right spot. So I feel that that's the easiest way to destroy that small parcel. So the things that tie to that, why do I rate that higher than any other issue or any other cause or any other plan on them small parcels, is simply because you're dealing with a smaller lines of movement. You're dealing with it's more crucial. Your steps in and out, your steps day by day are so much more crucial on small parcels, and you can't ever stand to get away with, to overlook things and try to get away with nonsense going into when you're on any parcel, whether that's a large parcel or it's these small parcels. I never ever recommend just hunting or just planting it or doing that. I think everything is you have to go beyond, like everybody says, go beyond the end of your nose. You have to think ahead in these properties, and these small parcels are so crucial on your steps, is because if it goes from being planted in the wrong spot, you can't get in, you can't get out. That first week of season, everybody wants to sit on the greens of the food plot because the trail cameras say that the deer are there. You go in there, and that shooter might not come out. Your whole field is loaded with your whole food plot, whether it's a 1/4 acre, whether it's 2 acres, and the whole food plot is full of deer, and you don't pull the trigger, you don't send an arrow down range on that shooter, and now you have to get out, and we'll just blow the deer off, or we'll snort wheeze at them, or we'll make noise in the tree stand, or I love the ones of throwing rocks out in the food plot to scare them. And any of that stuff is, every time that any of that happens, your success rate goes closer and closer and closer to the toilet, and it's hard to get that back on these small parcels. So that's why I always push for and it's a huge push right now. Everybody wants to do it. Everybody's got the mindset of a food plot, like I always say. But it's the most overlooked step. It's the most crucial part of a small parcel. Do not just plant an area just so you can get a food plot. So, what guys say to me when I say that is, oh, everybody's got to have a food plot. My neighbor doesn't have a food plot, so I have to have a food plot. I would rather have you create a browse plot or not have a food plot at all than to have a food plot in the wrong spot on a small parcel. So browse plots, let's say, you can make smaller browse plots that are kind of go along the lines of a kill plot, or them stationary plots where the deer are staging up before they go out into the big fields. You can make all kinds of little projects in there to encompass the movement or line of travel, and let those deer go out into the neighbors' big agricultural fields. Now, that's when you can get away with some of that stuff by letting those deer go out early season. You can let them go out when the corn's still standing. But where the food plots come in to play on these small parcels is when these properties have to hold, or you have to start holding these deer during the huntable hours. Now, you've got to know that on a small parcel, that a lot of these small parcels, especially here in the state of Michigan or even in the Midwest where we go, even this goes for Illinois or Iowa or wherever a small parcel is. If you do not hold those deer on your property for a 24-hour period, multiple deer on your property for a 24-hour period, you do not have a large parcel. I don't care if it's 400 acres, you don't have a large parcel. If the habitat isn't correct and you don't hold that, you do not hold that 24-hour everyday movement of those deer, you have a small parcel. So from 400, and you just keep climbing down on the scale of huntable acreage, it just makes the point of having to be able to make sure that all of your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted on small parcels. And when you throw a food plot into the mix, it's worse than having, in my eyes, it can be worse than having a bait pile there to hunt over. And here's the reason why, is because a bait pile, and I know this differs from region to region, but from the Midwest to Canada, what I see is a bait pile will hold 2, 3, maybe 4 deer, depending on the size of the bait pile, and you should spread that over if you bait, if you don't bait. These deer will come in 2 eat at a time. This deer comes in, that deer comes out. So you have a lot of, you may have some time to, when a deer comes in before something else comes in, you might have time to get out of there if those deer are coming from a little ways away into your bait station. Well, after dark comes and you can time it so you can get out, you may be able to get away with that. I don't recommend it, but I don't recommend if you're going to bait sitting over the bait pile to begin with. But if you might have a better chance of getting out of that picture of that window of that, or have that window opportunity to get away from those deer. On a food plot, that's not the case. Now you've got a half acre of a food plot or of a bait pile, or you have a 2 acre spread of, or whether it's clover or alfalfa mix, and you've got turnips mixed into it, and red radishes is knee high, or whatever the case is. You have way more tonnage and you have way more area for those deer to roam freely out in front of you, and they're spread out over a bigger area. And now you're directly on the side of the smorgasbord, and there is absolutely no way to get off that food plot without blowing that entire food plot. And if you do that once, you do it twice, you don't, this game, this is not baseball, you don't get 3 strikes, you're out. With these mature deer, guys, especially on a small parcel in a region such as we are here, like in mid-Michigan, the 3 strike rule is out the window. We're not playing baseball with these mature bucks. They will give you one opportunity, and if you blow that opportunity, or you blow that sit as far as bust those deer off those food plots, I always say, in our region here in Michigan, and the farther you go into the Midwest and you go down to Texas, this totally changes, where the pressure is different, or even down to, let's say, Kentucky or Ohio, where they don't have near the hunters in the woods. You do that, you blow a deer off those food plots. To me, you go into a strategy where it's like I say it's about 2 weeks. There's a 2-week time period there, and you might get lucky. He might get hungry. He might chase a doe through The power of the buck and the lack of brain sometimes will kill us all. But that is not something that you want to be able to have to wait for to recoup on a 2-week window. 2 weeks. The next time you do it, it's 2 weeks. And a lot of times is you don't even know you're doing it. The majority of the clients that I have that I explain this to don't realize that they're even doing this because they don't see it. Well, I didn't see the deer on there, so I got out of the stand, and you know, I might have busted some does, but you got to think of the domino effect. You know, you bust the deer out the plot, whether it's the Milk River or whether it's small town Hawkins, Michigan. You blow a deer off that field or food plot, and it sends all those deer back towards the bedding area where they came from. You not just only blew you that set, you blew sets on top of each other for the next week, 2 weeks out the window. So that's why I feel that that it can be a huge detrimental step to completely destroy the huntability of a small parcel. Is it going to destroy your the way that your food plot grows, and is it going to destroy the look of your land? No, it's not what I'm saying about destroying a property. What I'm saying is that destroying the success rate on your small parcel. The best way to do that is to put that food plot in a spot where that food plot should not be, and ruin and start blowing those deer off those food plots. It's a very passionate outlook that I have on helping people understand that on these small parcels. And once you see that done, you will never ever, you will make sure that you do not take that step of making sure that food plot on a small parcel you'll never have that happen. You'll make sure that never happens again. I've got clients after they see this, whether they come to my place here and visit what we've got on this small parcel that I have now and upcoming farm that we're purchasing here and going into the new year. The way the farms lay out and how I do this, once you see that and you see the huntability and be able to get off that food plot and have that make sense, I've got guys that will go to the extent, because of my design and because of my recommendations, we will go to the extent of planting those food plots to native grasses and totally taking those food plots out of the window and making them an edge, making them a line of travel, planting it to a screen, planting it to another bedding area, and we'll totally set that out of the spectrum of a food plot. So make sure that you take the step. If you don't have me counsel you on your properties, or you don't have me design your properties, or I never do 1 ounce of work on your properties, make sure the next time that you go to plant a food plot on your small parcel, before you put the plot master to work, before you put the tractor, before you even line up fertilizer or even worry about seed or whatever the case is, the first step is make sure that that food plot is not in the wrong place. It's in the right place, and you are not 95% sure, you are 100% sure that you can get off that food plot, or you can get out of your tree stand that's not on the food plot. You can get out of the tree stand after those deer bypass you on the way to their destination food, on the way to a destination food plot, or wherever they're going to feed, the destination feed locations, and you can get out of your tree stand if you have to 3 nights a week, let's say, or when the wind is right. And if you cannot do that on that setup, do not plant that food plot. I'll buy the seed from you that you bought for your food plot, and I will use it somewhere, or we'll feed it to the birds, whatever the case is. I would rather do that than see you plant that food plot in the wrong spot and get busted the first week of season and shoot your chances in the foot of harvesting a mature animal. It's a huge step. It's an easy step not to overlook, but it's a step that is number one in my book on how that the first number one step to create or destroying a small parcel anywhere in the country, but destroying a small parcel, number one step is, always remember this, number one step is putting that food plot in the wrong place. Thanks, guys.